It's Eve 2020, July 20. Oh, so it's July 20, 2020. Remarkable. I am Matterall still, and welcome to today's news broadcast for EVE Online. We'll take a look at some of the stuff that happened all the way back into next week. We've been busy covering other stories a little more in depth. There's some big news here. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the features that were released last Thursday. The Proving Grounds, some of the stuff that happened there. The big change from Outer Hell to Inner of Mango. About 4,000 people moved over. Of course, we'll give a war update as best we can. And talk about Providence, which we covered yesterday on Talking in Stations proper. It's an important show. I think that's an end of an era there, but we'll see. It's up to them, not up to us spectators. All right, let's start with a little bit of traditional stuff, and we'll try to make new traditions too. But I always try to do EVE offline first. See what the CPU is. It's just for like weather. It's our only measurement of activity in the game, although really what's important is how many people are playing around you. Looks like 35,000 over the last day or so. Came close to 40,000 again. Yeah, last few weeks with the war, you would think there'd be an uptick, with the amount of publicity the war gives itself, but there really isn't. It's been consistent for the last, with one exception, which was move ops, I believe, on July 5th. Yeah, those are move ops, and that didn't even crack 40,000 people on at the same time. Think about that. If you have a war this big and it feels that big and you don't crack 40,000, the war's not as big as you think, or not as many people are participating. Which then makes you think, how big is EVE Online? You can have a war that's involving so many groups, and still it doesn't really register. Well, it did register like by 5,000, right? Because every other weekend is 37,000, but that's after war. Before that, 35,000. So yeah, it registered about 4,000, 35,000. Not taking anything away from it. I just want people to remember EVE is a big game. Lots of people do different things. The war isn't everything. Okay, let's go to one of our traditional spots is EVE.len. We'll try to get our own dashboard and maybe use .len less, but .len is a ton of good information. It's been around for a long time. It's evemaps.len.net. Check that out. Be familiar with it if you're not. Goonswarm picked up some territory in Aquarius. They picked up 20 systems. I think they must be going into the floodplain as part of a strategy, maybe to buffer or to fight test, not in Delve, but in Aquarius. But I don't know. It's just territory on paper. I don't know what they're doing in there on structure. They may have always had it conquered in structures. But that's what's going on there. HiveMind loses 7 systems. That is Aquarius. So that might have been, there's something's going on in Aquarius and Goonswarm, so they're taking over some space there at least. So what we have, so is a war going on where everybody is attacking Delve, everybody in nullsec, and not everybody, but a lot of people in nullsec. And they have these things called Floodplains. Hey Spod, what's up?
Hello.
Yeah, I don't have bubbles. So you can hear me, right, without pushing talk? Okay. I don't have bubbles to see who's speaking, but it's just Spot in here with me. I should put your camera on. No, I can't use the camera. Ladies and gentlemen.
Can if you want, but I've got a filthy room. I need to tidy up. And I need a shave. And I need to brush my hair.
It's all right. It's bunker lifestyle. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, it's time for me to get a PC to do the streaming stuff if we want it done right. Been having technical problems lately, which really bugged me. Our usual engineer, McLeod, is having connection problems. Otherwise, he's great. But I've had platform problems, which is I can't really stream the way I want to because Macintosh isn't hardware accelerated, and so you get the crackling of sound as the CPU is going crazy trying to produce the videos. So that's why you don't stream the game. I don't use the in-game map much. I can't stream videos of other people. It's not a good situation on OS 10 for streaming Eve. So I'm going to have to break down and do something about that. Which is bad because I never really wanted to admit that I was doing this basically full time. So now I have to face the fact. Just sad. Okay, so going back to Alliance SOM changes in 7 days, Goonswarm picks up 20 systems in Aquarius. HiveMind releases 17 of those. It could be that they're looking to make more buffer space between them and Delve proper to give the enemy more territory to chew through. I'm not sure it works that way, but that's just an assumption of what they could be doing in Aquarius. Let's bring up the universal map here in a second. Boy, this thing is lagging. Still waiting. Don't remember it taking so long.
It doesn't usually do that. So we have a bad day, I think.
Yeah, let's call it a bad day. All right, so here's a map. Yeah, it's lagging. Here's Delve in the middle, right? It's that little jewel in the middle. And the reason Delve is because it was called Fortress Delve long before Goonswarm was there. It was called Fortress Delve probably maybe when Bob took it in 2005 or something. And they took it from a pacifist group called, what was it called? Something like Federation of Stars or something very attackable, I guess. Sounded like very Care Bearish. But there was a group, I think, called the Federation of Stars, and they were kind of like a league of more or less pacifist groups. And when Delve first opened up, they took over that spot. And they lived there because these bridges didn't exist between Fountain and Delve or Period Basis or Stain. Like, these bridges didn't exist. It was literally you come in through Empire space only. So you came in through Aquarius, you came in through Delve. And so it was kind of an island that you would go to. And they occupied this space until they were basically dominated and kicked out by a band of brothers, I believe. And then it became a fortress. And then later these extensions came into Fountain because CCP wanted to build in some back doors so that people would not be safe. You couldn't basically just block the front doors and be completely safe. Remember, if you're out here, you don't have light year range for jumping from Stain or from Fountain, so you need those bridges. Otherwise, you can't get in unless you go through Empire space. So what we've seen is in this war, in this Fortress Delve area, is so far really the first week was characterized by people who were just arriving. So you had a lot of staging happening over here in Catch, which looks it's far away over here. I don't know if my mouse is. I'll just put it in the center there. Sorry, I don't have a mouse. There. So there's Catch, and it seems far away, but it jumps all the way over to Empire space and then into Aquarius. But from Catch, they have Legacy has a network bridges, right? So they can get over here to Esoteria and Paragon Sol, and they can attack into period basis. They can go through Stain into period basis as well, which they did, I think. And they won a system there. They might lose it. Or you come in through Catch here, which is their primary route, and into Aquarius, which oddly enough, they don't seem to have done very much. So that's what's interesting about Aquarius. So what we've been talking about, and something you've heard lately, is floodplains, right? Have you heard that term, floodplains? And what they're talking about is that here you have Delve, which is where the fortress is. It's where all the structures are, and it's where the Imperium's all over, but this is where like Goonswarm lives. In Fountain, you have a part of Imperium, but not Goonswarm. You have the Bastion, and you also have the Initiative. They're the ones that live in Fountain. In Aquarius, you had nothing. They just kind of let people live there that moved in, and then they would just kill them when they needed to. In period basis, you had kind of like Chinese renters, basically, that were, we'll call them refugees from the north, from Guardians of the Galaxy or Dead Coalition when they got defeated by PandaFam a few months ago. So those guys came down and they were given period basis because it was really just kind of a renter area. At the time, it bordered on a very safe area, period basis, Esoteria, Stain. These are all areas that Imperium had good relations with. Legacy owned Paragon Sol and Esoteria. Esoteria, I think, was Army of Mango, if I'm not mistaken. Or was that? No, that was maybe Paragon Sol. But these were renters, kind of like Chinese, not renters, but guests. It's different. Maybe period basis, they weren't renters, they were guests, because now they're part of the Imperium. So you had Dracarys, I keep saying Dracarys, and what was the other group? The bigger group, Ranger Regiment, living there. They're not renters. I take that back. They're more like part of the Imperium now. They're guests. And over here you had the same thing. You had guests. I don't think they were renters. Or Omist, that's who it was. Yeah, that was Fraternity Space. All right, I think you just had like renters then for Legacy over here in Esoteria and Paragon Sol. The point is, they were friendly border regions to Imperium, so it was safe to be here. So when this whole thing went down, period basis, Aquarius, and even Fountain, which had Imperium proper, there's a discussion. Is that part of their SOV, or is that just floodplains? Like, sure, go ahead. This is where you can overflow the rivers into this area. We don't really live there. We just farm it when we can. And when there's a flood, nothing's destroyed because that's where the water's supposed to go. So we just let it happen. What we really care about is the city, and that it would be Delve, basically. So the first week of this war, which is now 2 weeks ago, people came into, well, their first was a raid. The very first night, there was like, you're not attacking us, we're attacking you, said the Imperium. So they went from period basis and did a surprise attack into Paragon Sol and just lit the place on fire with timers, and then withdrew back to period basis. It was kind of like, we're taking the initiative because we're attacking at the stroke of midnight, and we're going to take the fight to you. And so that's how it started. In the meantime, Legacy had started to assemble over here in Lower Catch, which is Fat G6, I think. Yeah, Fat G6 around here. So that's like 3 jumps out of Aquarius, and they were gathering. They put a keep star down, or they had a keep star. No, they put one down. And then they put a second one down for some redundancy and some clone control. And so they started staging, and all these people started to arrive there. Fire Coalition started to arrive there. I think super capitals from the north, from Pandemic Legion, and I think those started to form down here to protect those the anchoring of those keep stars. So that's where the super fleet is, that in the Doomsday scenario will collide with the Delve super fleet. And up here you had Pro God Legend staging northern forces and pro-gods from Test, but he's or that's where he wanted to stage. I don't know if he's there. He might be in the south fighting with Test. But up here you have Pandemic Legion and NC Dot. And these are the guys that are attacking Fountain and with some success. They landed in Hopib, which is low sec. So they can't be kicked out. But they're right here on this border. And the thing about Fountain and the way it works, we've covered this before. This is that long bridge right here. Let me get even closer. And once you get into this system, D4KU, it's just one jump. But once you own that system, now you can access the middle of Fountain, right where the word is. And that's NPC space. You can't get kicked out of there either. And that gives you now the options to go north or south in your attacks if you're using capitals. So this is a really tough region to hold. You basically one jump in, one jump over, and you control a big portion of that region. And that's why I think Initiative's having a problem securing it completely. They're in charge of it. It's theirs. They got it. Bastion's in there too. But it is a difficult region to hold on to, which makes it a fun region if you like that back and forth. So that's where a lot of the action is. And down here in Delve, everything seems to be fine. I think they're maybe suffering local attacks, not too different from usual. But Quarius was this big question mark. Oh, I forgot to go back to Paragon period basis. So period basis, the attack comes from the Imperium at first, but then the next day there's an attack on period basis in TCAG here that was just a warning shot from Test. So they were kind of like doing warning shots to each other. Nothing happened over here. The fire that the Imperium set for Paragon Soul just fizzled because a lot of those timers self-repaired. And so that was just a warning shot then, and tested the same thing with TCAG, and then they actually took over one of these systems right here, XTAC-Z. They took the iHub out of there. Now, they may have lost it by now. I haven't checked the status on it. I suppose we could check it now. Yeah, the system isn't really what you're looking at, not the ownership of the system. You're looking at the iHub. Yeah, and so it's reinforced, and I have a feeling it will be lost. So this progress that Test made will be dialed back. But it was interesting they were able to put down the infrastructure hub in the first place. That was a little break in the armor, but it wasn't seen as an important break. I don't know why. Nobody seemed to be talking about it being an important thing. So this brings us back to Quarius, which is where we started. Period basis, Fountain to some degree, and Quarius. Are these floodplains or are these places you want to protect? In this war, I think I think it depends on who you ask, but you want this war to go slowly if you're defending. You want them to have to work and burn out trying to take period basis, trying to take Quarius, trying to take Fountain. So by the time they get to Delve, they're not fresh. You know, if you can delay them weeks and weeks in those areas in front of you, those buffer areas, then by the time they get to Delve, they may be, the novelty of the war might have worn off. And Delve is where it should get harder. That's what we expect. So the strategy might be, all right, we're holding them up in Fountain, and we're holding them off in period basis. Let's also hold them off in Quarius, because this is a three-pronged attack. They're attacking through all those regions, period basis, Quarius, and Fountain. So instead of giving those up as floodplains, like, oh yeah, just let them flood, they're not saying that. They're saying, no, let's fight there too. But we'll see. This war seems to be changing like in minor ways every day, so we don't know. Okay, so there's a little catch up. That was the first week was people staging. The second week, people staging, and I forgot to say the fight of the bridges, where they're fighting these long jumps, so they can get a foothold into these, call them floodplains. And once they're there, they can dominate the area a little more consistently. And once you can dominate an area more consistently, you can start to move it more and more weaponry into it. And that gives you more progress. You have more morale. You have more supplies. And then you can put more pressure on Delve. Delve is hard to get to. There's not a lot of pressure you can put on it. There's NPC space in here for Delve, but the one thing that the attacking army or the attacking people don't want to do is go head on against Delve. Delve is too big. They have too many super capitals. If they drop them all, there is no resisting that. So instead, what they're trying to do is have Delve make choices. Do you defend the south? Do you help out in the north? Or do you fight in Aquarius? Like, those are the choices they have to make. They can't be at all places at all times. So that's what we're seeing. Okay, great. A lot of activity here. Ooh, a sub. Thank you. Rezix. So the week 2, so that was week 1 that we talked about, mostly staging, mostly for fighting for beachheads in these floodplains, mostly trying to cross what I call these bridges here, these long jumps between regions. The second week is a little more consistent warming of the combat, more trading. Sorry about that. I didn't know it froze, so I'll go back and talk just a little bit, just back up a little bit. What we're looking for is not necessarily the battles. Wait, we're looking for the, I'm moving my head so I can see if it's frozen or not, but you guys tell me if it freezes up and I'll be looking at chat. So what you have is the battles are hard to figure out, like what's important and what's not important. It's usually in retrospect, or when you have a pivotal moment where everybody says, oh, a thing happened or didn't happen, and there's an interesting consensus among the FCs or the players when something important has happened. And those are what you look for in a war like this, because those are pivotal moments that have changed the game a little bit. And that's what happened in Altac 4. As Killaby was saying, the first week, the initiative was, from his perspective, tiring themselves out by calling CTAs, calls to actions. Everybody has a different name for it, but basically it means like, we don't care what you're doing, drop what you're doing and get in here and fight. This is a big fight, it's an important fight. And a normal person will do that a few times, but they can't do it all the time. And they can't do it early in a war and be expected to do it all the way through the months and months that it's going to take. I'm sorry if I said Altac 4, it looks like Altac 4. It's actually Altac A. It's one jump in to Fountain from the direction of Iridia, which is where the attack is coming from. So D4KU is the first system in Altac A, not Altac 4. So in Altac A, this big battle happened that just kind of erupted because the initiative for the first week had put on a posture of a lot of strength. They put a lot of super caps on grid. They kind of showed like, this is going to, we've got this much power, that sort of thing. And so there was a very robust presence from initiative. And I think they continued in that posture until Altac A. Something, just some routine stuff was going on with some iHubs being scrambled or intosist and some structures here and there. And so they showed up with carriers. I think they showed up with 53 carriers and actually managed to get tackled by the invading forces. And normally that's not a big deal because you have a whole super capital fleet that can go in and tackle that. I mean, can escalate to that. So when the North had these guys tackled, the initiative tackled, and they were carriers, that's a juicy enough target to put some weight on. So they dropped dreads and they started to kill all these carriers. I think they ended up killing 40 or more. At that point, initiative, they kind of got into this mess accidentally. They weren't really prepared for it. They prepared to drop super capitals, but of course they had to wait and see if it was worth it. Like how many, is is this going to drag us further into a conflict that we're not ready for yet? Because if the supers had jumped, they might have been tackled as well. And we don't know how many dreads would have been pouring in to kill Titans. And then you would turn a small victory of, well, it's not small, but a medium-sized victory of 40 carriers into a huge victory of, 10, 12, 15 Titans, whatever they could manage to kill with dreads. In any case, the experienced pilots of Initiative decided not to do that. So they let those 40 carriers die. And that was a mental switch. So now you're talking about robust power, and what you had last week was robust show of forces, and you saw that there are situations where that can't be used, which means it takes it off the table in some situations, and that is a change in psychology. So now the invading forces know there are circumstances where the Initiative will not escalate. And that was a big deal. And I don't know if it was a big deal for us watching it when we saw it, because it was kind of a typical fight with capitals being destroyed. But psychologically, it had an impact. At the same time, in Fountain, you had, I think, Pandemic Legion has some remnants of Inner Hell that have joined them since Inner Hell closed. And they are just chewing up Fountain from the inside, destroying structures. And so all this stuff is really getting destroyed. Like this, Sov in Fountain is not anything that is always a sure thing, because I told you that Fountain can be cut in half pretty easily. Also, the Initiative is not necessarily a group that wants to put down roots like a Legacy does, or a Test does, or an Imperium does. They're more of a nomadic brawling group, and a little more in the fashion of NC Dot or a PL or those kinds of groups. So they may not care that much about a lot of the structures that are being chewed up, but there's a lot of structures, a lot of industrial structures and moon mining structures all being destroyed throughout that area. So that's what happened in the second week, and that was kind of a big deal. So the second week has been mostly about Fountain, although I think in the South things are starting to heat up, but it's really been a little bit more of a stalemate. Everybody that I've talked to on both sides say morale is really high, and people are super happy, and they're all liking the progress of this war. And to give you an idea, EVE Online wars can take years. They can also take months, which are not the good ones, right? Like, to me, World War B was not a very good war. It was actually pretty terrible. It went too fast. It was kind of, remember, the psychological breaks are the ones you look for. The Imperium in the North was broken psychologically quickly because they were outblobbed pretty convincingly twice in a row. And then CO2 changed sides. And by that point, you knew that they were never not going to be blobbed. So psychologically, they broke and said, we got to go. That happened really fast. It happened within 3 fights. Even faster was the Imperium when they marched on their old territory and went up into the north. There was one fight where there was a small victory that NC won over Goonswarm. It was just one battle for some territory. And it was kind of a come from behind win, and it reminded NC about, like, yeah, we're smaller, but we're more effective. And they had that to rally around. And then Imperium just destroyed the keep stars behind them. And so they're like, yep, we're done. We're out of here. Psychologically broken. NC Dot totally took off and did something else. And Tribute was just completely left to be burned down. Part of that strategy was, if they wanted to take the time to burn all this stuff down, let them. And they did. And they took all the time, and they started blowing everything up. And they actually got tired. This is the Imperium in the north. And then the drifters hit. And so that totally changed the subject, which psychologically was bad for the Imperium, which is one of the reasons I think Mittani was so mad about it. It's because, hey, we're winning here. We're winning a huge war. It's a huge war of revenge. And you change the subject. Now everybody wants talking about drifters. Okay. So again, psychological pivots. We've seen one so far, I think, and that was the Battle of Altac A. Oh, cool. Nice. Crimilton. I can't read it. He says, this channel is awesome. I'm new to Eve and I'm glad I found it. Thanks for the great work. Well, thank you for listening. We have like 4 years of backlog. So go to talkingstations.com, type in what you're interested in, and you'll see podcasts on those things pop up. And if you don't have time to see those, listen to those podcasts, you can just look at the show notes because we leave all the links in there that we use. So it gives you like relevant information. So it, use it as a library kind of thing. And then our YouTube channel, that's youtube.com/talkingstations, has last videos for the last year and a half of shows. And now we do daily shows and stuff. So yeah, welcome. It's nice to have you here. We also have a Discord. Can somebody pull that up? Great. Thanks. You can see there's a Discord. You can join that where we talk all day, on and off all day, and definitely chat's full. We have like 3,500 Eve players in here. So yeah. So, okay. So there's, you're kind of caught up on it. I'm not going to give you all the details because I don't possess them in my memory. So I can't tell you what's been going on and what battles have been fought and all this other stuff. But I would try to give you the broad strokes so that you can wrap your head around the war and how it's going. This is the last thing I'll end on with this, and that is that these wars can go on. This is where I started saying these wars can go on for a long time. Some wars are really fast because the psychological breakdowns of morale happen quickly because they assess the situation and realize it's not going to happen. I gave you 2 examples of that. You also have wars that drag on for a long time, and those were kind of those are the better wars. They feel more like wars. They take longer. There's no big fight that everything's just, decided on. And this feels more like that. We don't know how it's going to end. These 2 groups are incredibly capable. They can last a long time and they can inflict a lot of damage, both these groups. So we don't know how this is going to end, and that keeps it exciting. And so right now you're seeing a low, I wouldn't call it low. You're seeing a very active war with a lot of victories that are going to add up over time. But you're going to see small breaks like you did in Altac A of psychological reassessment of a situation. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say that at that point, when Altac A happened, a few days later, Dark Shines, an FC for the initiative, was basically writing, yeah, we never really intended to keep Fountain, so, make sure your stuff's secure, and just basically he was trying to give the expectations of, we might lose Fountain. It's not the end of the war, but don't expect to keep it. We never expected to keep it. So he's adjusting people's expectations or people's impressions of what their, say, losses are, or why they're not attacking, or, he's defending their morale is what he's doing. There's a lot of that going on in EVE Online. It is more important to defend your people's morale than it is to defend territory. Okay, I said I was going to come back for some questions, and I will take questions, and comments, and your comments, because you guys know more than I do by a lot collectively. Okay, Parvas is probably broken down yet. We'll get to that. How's the transition to YouTube going? Transition to YouTube is still being looked at. We have some things that we're looking at. For instance, I'll just pop this up. We had on our live channel, we do echoes on YouTube already. We don't do it on Twitch, but that wasn't design. That was just, so Who's a Fish is somebody that works with us, and she's doing great programming on Eve, but also on Eve Echoes. And she just did a show on content makers. It's like video makers. And right in the middle of it, her stream was taken down on YouTube because it was reported as some kind of a violation of some sort. And so we looked at that and said, "Uh-oh, that's terrible. What if somebody can complain about talking in stations and take it offline in the middle of the show and then not let us use the video?" Well, we got it reversed within a few hours. So I think what happens is YouTube will then build a profile of people trying to mess with your show, and so then they won't take the benefit of the doubt and just take you down. They'll actually investigate before they take you down. And at that point, it becomes a little safer to move to YouTube. But until that happens, we can't really risk that, right? Because EVE players are very devious, and if they don't like the content that you're giving out, they'll find a way to take you down, even temporarily. And they can do it with a dummy account. So that's what happened yesterday. So it was kind of alarming. So the move to YouTube is not delayed necessarily. It was always going to be a 2 to 3 month process, but we'll be eventually moving there. We just feel like our Twitch is great for immediacy. It's got access to you guys, with alerts, and it's whatever. But if you look around, there's like, this is made for a different thing. It's made for somebody piloting their whole ship. It's not made for talk. It's made for showing a video game. And all the bells and whistles feel to me like a casino. There's everything's bright and bubbly and very young and all that kind of stuff. And if you look at YouTube, it's very much
young.
What? Is it the same?
Is that the problem?
No, that's not the problem.
I'm on Team Twitch, unfortunately. I'm not interested in the YouTube side.
I know you are. I know. So we can debate this.
It looks much better.
I don't think it looks better. But it's
got night mode, man. That's all you need.
Well, night mode's nice, I have to admit. If you look at real news, you'll see the live cams. Oh no, did we stop again? No. You'll see the live cams on Twitch, but when you see like a news, like a news presentation, you'll see that on YouTube. So I think it's a different medium for a different group. So that's that. Next, Villy brokered a peace deal. Let's see. Why is Villy brokering a peace deal when he instigated a war to create content? Parv, these are all great questions you asked like a long time ago.
Did he instigate the war?
What's that?
Did he have a part in instigating the war? That's actually something I genuinely don't.
No,
really
I think
know.
he's saying he's instigated a content war against the Imperium to keep people happy and to play, and that's the whole theme, right? So if Villy is saying like, "Hey, we got to make this game fun, so we're going to go to war," why is he stopping a different war in Providence? Like it's incongruent.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a very different story.
Yeah, and that's what my answer would have been as well. That it's one thing to look to create content as wars. It's another thing to break content generation machines, which Provi kind of is for people. I think that's probably the answer's in there somewhere. In other words, the situation in Providence has never been stagnant and boring. It's always been a hunting grounds for hunters, but also a survival ground for people who want to harvest that have groups. So it's a very different situation. And I think Villy stepped in to say, look, Rocket X and Wrecking Crew, you guys are now in the position to destroy Providence, and you may not want to do that. And Rocket X agreed. Yeah, that's not what we want. We want them to stick around.
Provi is really, really fragile right now.
Yeah. Hey, Tiberius.
He was asked to, was he not?
Which Tiberius is this? I know like 3. Is this
Dr. Tiberius?
Oh, Dr. Tiberius. All right. Cool, man. It's good to see you. We got to commiserate, right? Like, yeah, we got to, you poor man. I hope you're safe.
I'm doing fine.
Good.
Keep going with what you got.
All right. So the Providence situation is different, but it's neat that you at least find that parallel. That's a really interesting point, Parv. In fact, I'm going to read more comments, Spod, but maybe you could bring us up to speed on what's going on in Providence.
I was gonna give my understanding of why Villy was involved in that deal.
Sure.
And my understanding, and of course this may be wrong, and I'm an evil anti-Provi shield, but as far as I'm aware, it seemed that the pressure on Provi block was simply too great, and if you want any chance of preserving that content farm, as they get called, unfortunately, but that content, you need to give them a break. When you've pushed the farm so far, you can't milk a dry cow, or you can't milk a dead cow. They've been pushed so far that if they carried on with that pressure, it was going to be over far sooner than anyone wanted. And so I think both sides in the end, to some extent, reached out, and then Willie was the man in the middle that got them to shake hands.
Yeah, or just go to your corners. It's kind of what it was like.
So somebody in chat said it'd be interesting to see what happens in Provi once CVA and friends leave. So I'm actually I'm way behind on what's going on in K-Space right now. So is CVA pulling pitch out of Provi? Because they've been there for like 10 years.
By the way, K-Space means known space as opposed to unknown space, which is wormholes. We have some new guys.
I suppose I'll say it, but it's not public knowledge, but yes.
Okay.
So now it is public knowledge.
Well, yeah, now you did it. What did you do? I didn't even watch. I didn't even see you do it. What did you just say?
CVA is leaving.
They are?
Yes. Where to is still very much undecided. The meeting tonight that is going on with CVA is the sort of initial, hey guys, it's time to consolidate your assets so that when we do have to catch the train, you're not still packing your suitcase.
Is probably going to be used as a hotbed for contention, because I know that like anytime I've been playing this game for like 15 years. Anytime anybody big gets like a dread cache of more than like 20, where it has like a Titan or two or something, like everybody freaks out. So I don't know, like, because I know that CVA's leadership has basically fallen by the wayside. CVA has had the same leaders for, oh Jesus, I don't know who's been, I can't remember what his name is, but he's been
Equinox?
like nigh a decade, basically. He's been in charge of CVA. And
Equinox
things have gotten, I'm sorry?
Equinox is in charge of CVA right now.
Yeah, Equinox has been in charge, like he's been there for like nigh a decade, and like I got nothing against the guy, but things have become really stagnant, and it's been a really interesting ride, to say the least, to kind of watch things happen there. But I don't know, I guess it's interesting that they would just pull pitch and leave like that, because they've been there forever. I'm just wondering if maybe that's just because it's going to be such a hotbed of contention in this coming war, or maybe they're just tired of getting farmed by everyone coming in and out of there. It's interesting.
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I don't think Spod's got his ear to the ground there, but he's so anti-Provi, you can't really trust him.
The terribly unfortunate thing is all the anti-Provi stuff that I come out with is backed up with evidence. I try not to opinion when it comes to like things that are happening now. I'm not going to say Jeff is leaving as an opinion. If I'm going to say that, I'm going to have a very good reason to say that and some kind of evidence. But it's a damn shame what's happened to Provi. But I dare say it's the result of their own actions. They, like you said, they've been stagnant for a long time, and it's a bit sad because in the last maybe 6 months they did sort of seem to pick up a little bit, but it sputtered out very quickly, and it's it's just slowly circled the drain, and it's just a case of let's say a few people have just kicked them a bit closer to the drain, and now it's time to fall down.
If they decide, they have the option to not fall down.
Yes, they have the option to try and fight it out.
Or not. I mean, they have a non-invasion pact in place, 2 months. They can reform. Here's the thing, and we got to this.
Well, I can share my opinion on what the actual non-invasion pact is and what's actually going on, but that will very much under the opinion banner.
All right. Well, what's your analysis of the situation? Let's hear that, and then I'll tell you what we talked about yesterday. Okay.
So the non-invasion pact, in my opinion, is a truce to allow, as Vili simply has. I don't understand the value or the ties between Vili and Proviblock, but it's essentially to buy time for Proviblock to consolidate their assets and get out. So I'm fully expecting
it's cover to get out, is what you're saying.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm like very confident that's the reason why that NIP was signed. CVA is definitely leaving in one way or another. Where they're going to go, I don't know. And my opinion is this actually might be the last time, and that's what's sad.
Yeah, I think that's what it feels like to me. So Tiberius, yesterday on the Sunday show, we had some technical problems then too, but we were able to get through the Provi part of it intact. By the way, I stitched it all together and put it out on YouTube so you can catch it there, and we'll piece together the podcast so you can hear it soon. But we talked about Provi for a big part of the show, and we got to the point where the Provi guys really wouldn't say much because they're still it's a very fluid situation. They haven't actually made certain decisions. But pretty much the Wrecking Crew out-escalated Provi in the traditional manner that is popular now. And Providence, in all those years, 10 years, hasn't really wanted to upgrade in that way, to upgrade to super capitals, because it works against them. If they put out super capitals in any form, they'll get farmed by bigger groups that want to kill super capitals because they think Provi's not capable of using them well. And so if you have only 4 or 5 super capitals, those individual pilots will never risk those because that's only 4. And you're going to get jumped by a dread bomb, which could kill 4. So it works against them to do that because they're less tightly organized, that a lot of the power that they have is individually owned, not group owned. There's no SRP for those kinds of ships, etc. There's a lot of reasons they can't grow to that size. But here you have Wrecking Crew that can, and they SRP each other's alliances. It's a very interesting group. It works like a SIG, not actually a group. It's not a coalition necessarily. It's not an alliance, but it's kind of like an alliance of alliances. And if that makes any sense. So they have programs that reach across each place. They defend each other's space, etc. That's a very modern group with very modern capability. At the center of it, you have Rocket X, who those of you who have been around a while know that he's a super hunter. So this guy knows how to handle himself around killing super capitals. But he's also pretty vicious, like ambusher. And you have Sado, who's joined his area. And he's a really good FC coming out of, a year of war with Winter Coalition. So he knows how to fight too. And these guys bring very new thinking to an old situation. And I think it shows you the difference between where the game is now and where the game was 5-10 years ago. And you can see why now people think that the Imperium or the new way of doing things is no longer fun for the game.
So somebody in chat said saying something is stagnant doesn't actually tell you anything. So I guess what Matterall just said there, it kind of like explains what I guess is the colloquial term of stagnant, which is that the Providence, because CVA has been there for such a long time, the whole block, excuse me, in and of itself has had an old mentality and they've kind of stuck with that old mentality of how the game is and have applied it to the way that Provi is run for pretty much the majority of their existence. So I think that's a good application to kind of answer what that guy said up there earlier. And to kind of, I guess, to add to what you said there, unfortunately, Provi is poised in such a position that if you build up a super fleet or a dread fleet or anything, everyone who's on the back door of Providence, it's like the Cuban Missile Crisis to a certain extent, right? Like if you want to apply it in real world terms, like if you build anything bigger than 4 or 5 supers or 25 dreads or something like that, people are gonna wonder, okay, so where are those dreads going and what are those dreads going to be used for? Like, why are they being, pointed? Where's the pointy end of the stick going to be? And so, just ends up, and then they end up getting kind of like the situation they had back in, what was it, 16 or 17, when the all the faction Fortizars dropped, and then Test just absolutely ravaged Provi.
Well, actually, PL did, and then Test ravaged PL.
Yeah, PL. Sorry.
Somebody was going to ravage them, though, is the point.
Right.
Well, yeah, I think that's what we came to during the show. So we had them on the show. We had Rocket X, we had Sado, we had Kyle Saltz, and Gian, I think, is lead FC for Provi. And we had them talking, and sometimes they would get a little into the weeds about what was happening in each battle. But when we did sort them out, it really became clear by the end that Providence just can't beat them anymore. Providence was very competitive for a long time against even the Wrecking Crew, but the Wrecking Crew has grown or become ambitious enough to kind of dominate Provi most of the time. And the thing was that Providence could rely on Legacy and Brave to help balance out a little bit. So Providence, Legacy's not available right now either. Then again, Wrecking Crew is in the war effort as well, I think. So I think now that's what CVA might do.
Yeah, the world is their oyster in some ways. Apart from returning to Providence, there's a million things CVA could do. I'm sure there's plenty of things they're discussing. As far as I know, there's no hard decision been made yet. Sounds like you've been press ganged.
I've been what?
As I thought you'd been press ganged. I heard some voices in the background and then you disappeared.
Yeah, so the phones, no, they're still there. So I was yielding time so somebody could hear without a voice in my background. I'm just reading comments right now. If you guys have any comments, if not, we'll wrap up for today and start tomorrow morning. Well, I think, Providence is a big topic. May have to even write about it just to get the analysis out.
Cat Ziggy said Provi Block did not lose the means to fight or stay. They lost the stay. That will is the will of the leadership, possibly not the main rank or file. That basically sums it up pretty well to a large extent.
I'd say actually no, they did lose the means. Not lose, more that they just got outgrown. The RC just got to the point where they just could not be contested by anything that Provi could muster. And that wasn't because necessarily that Provi was suffering or shrinking. It's just they were holding and maybe growing a little bit, but not at the rate that RC did. And that's what put the nail in the coffin, is they just couldn't hold anymore.
And it's been a theme with Providence over the years, for at least 7-8 years, where people have been in Provi and been happy to be there, and we're loyal to the place, and we're wanting to modernize it. There's a lot of resistance to change in Provi, a resistance to use, the methods to win that have been changing over time, and I think that's a pattern for them that it makes today very unsurprising. And I think on the other side of it, Wrecking Crew doesn't really want to destroy Provi. They don't want them gone. Now they're going to have to be responsible for this territory. They don't want that. That's not what they're doing. At least that's what they say. But I don't know.
That's going to be super interesting. And again, Asterix's opinion. I don't think RC and RC and TRC look the same upon the region of Providence. As I imagine TRC is much more into the idea of taking Provi after the current residents leave and keeping it. Whereas RC obviously is not necessarily interested in that. I think they're honest when they say that. So how that affects them is definitely going to be interesting. Because somebody's going to have to live there, and who's it going to be? And the biggest, most obvious ticket is TRC.
What's weird is, why don't they say, all right, look, we don't want to fight you anymore, so we'll chill out? Because it's not normal to do that, is it?
It's a good question, actually. I don't know.
Why don't they just say, we'll just not attack you?
I don't know.
Yeah, by the way, I was trying to open a jar for my son. It totally defeated me. I lost to a jar.
Oh, dear. That's really got me thinking now. I don't know why they didn't just say, do you know what? Actually, no, I do know. I just remembered. Provi hates being called the content farm. And
yeah, everybody does.
If they were to sign a deal where they continue to exist and RC continues to do what RC is doing, then that's signing up to be cattle, and they don't want to do that. So I guess that's where the problem comes in. They don't want to be farmed until the end of time as cattle, so they're going to have to cut the thread and go somewhere else.
It's not natural. If you occupy space, you want to feel like you can control it. Not, that's one of the things. You don't want to feel like you're just there at the mercy of somebody else, because your players can't rally around you if they feel like you're just a prisoner to somebody else. That's a big deal in EVE, is people hated being called pets. I knew the people that actually started that term, by the way, pets. They hate being called pets.
Somebody asked, what is content? Content essentially is like fast, like in the moment content. So like in the moment fights, so to speak, like spontaneous fights, as opposed to like the war that's going on right now.
Yeah, content is basically fighting it's people's shorthand for PvP content, PvP content. They just call it content because they think EVE is all content, all PvP, but it's not. It's just, what they mean is fighting.
The only Provi block group that I've not heard any news on is Coalition Hispania. I want to see what's going on with them, because it feels like they've been left out of the loop, but I don't know how true that is. So I've seen and heard
language
plenty
barrier?
Of Hispania have got the advantage if they've got their southern region that they live in. Well, the constellation in this sort of southeast of Providence that Coalition Hispania in is actually quite the fortress. It's difficult to get in and out of if you're not, you're not on the friendly list, and they're not incompetent. They're a good set of fighters. The question is, are they going to join the Exodus, or are they going to stay and fight for their space? Because if they did stay and fight for their space, I think they would do a damn good show of it. And that could be an interesting, underdog story, sieged into the corner.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how much of Legacy being unavailable for big timers plays into that, if it does.
I don't think it does at all, to be honest. Is it was the camping pressure and stuff like that that killed them, not
Oh,
well, obviously a huge part of it is you can't contest soft timers and that kind of thing. But the real killer was that one of the reasons you can't contest soft timers is because nobody can rat, and if they can't rat, they don't want to log in because they haven't got any money. And they couldn't rat because they were hell camped in almost every single system had one or two cloakies in that as soon as anything shiny came out, they got jumped on. So it was sort of, they were crushed to death.
it's fun
Which I
suppression.
suppose, that does kind of make we just wanted to farm them from content potentially a bit disingenuous, because
Right.
if you're farming something, you don't sit on it and stick its head in the vice.
Clearly, yeah. You don't just sit on nests and burrows. You let the animals recreate if you're a hunter, for sport.
Yeah, they were sitting outside the rabbit burrow with a sledgehammer.
Where's the creature? Behind the rabbit?
Yeah, it didn't work. Didn't go well. It's not the way to preserve a farm. What they're really up to is anyone's guess, or even maybe they are up to what they said they are. They just mishandled it a little bit and it went too far.
Yeah, in our
Who knows?
humor, we're being very rude to Provi, who a lot of credit to Provi. They've done a lot over a long period of time, and they actually still had a lot of fighting power.
They could probably fight their way out if they had to.
But again, it's not about the peak fights. It's about the everyday life being destroyed because it's oppressive.
Yeah, like when I briefly lived there, there was one small pocket that I was aware of that wasn't a big deal in terms of getting dropped on, and because it was the only constellation in the region that was out of range of RC's Blops staging point, so it was the only place where you could, at least for some of the time, go farming for a little bit of time before somebody came along and smacked you on the head.
Yeah, we actually had an interesting talk about Snuffed Out and Siege Green and whose side was on whose side between not Rogue Coalition, but the Wrecking Crew and Provi Block. So you should check out yesterday's show on YouTube or listen for the podcast.
I never knew that Siege Green was on the other.
Siege Green, I think, doesn't like Snuffed Out. I think they're enemies. I think they were involved in something. I'm not sure about that. Anyway, so that's what happened with Provi. We'll definitely cover it more because it's kind of an ongoing situation, and we wish them the best. I was saying my title sounds like I'm insulting them, and maybe I should change it for that reason alone. But I called the episode.
What's the title?
I called the episode "Provi Block: A Relic of the Past."
It's factual, but maybe a little bit of a relic is the nicest word.
Well, relic I meant it as a holy symbol, right? Because they're holy holders. They're they're part of Amar. So I wanted that religious link. Being a relic is something that's treasured, right? So it's kind of like a treasure of the past, but they're not modern enough to survive against the new ways that players are forming themselves and the new techniques that they're applying. They're not necessarily that new, but it's kind of more of a combination of techniques, escalation patterns, N+1, cloaky camping as old as could be, but the way I think the way it's done now is pretty factory based. Like one person can lock down a whole system, a whole area. I don't know, but it seemed like it was definitely a contrast between a group that wants to play Eve a certain way, which was fine, and they were able to defend their space for a long time, and the realities that are hitting them now and not willing to change.
There's a whole group of people that are going to be massively affected by this that I admit, even I'd completely forgotten until somebody was talking about something similar today. Provi Block is not just those mainline soft holding alliances. You've got tens, almost hundreds of smaller corps and alliances that just live in Providence off the Nrds system. And they've lived there happily for years. And all of that's going to change because, well, RC don't have any intention of running it in a NRDS form. They're going to be Nbsi, the whole system of you immediately get shot, essentially, if you're not part of the gang. Whereas previously, as long as you behaved, Provi Block didn't shoot you. So that nurtured a lot of smaller, mostly like industrial and that kind of thing, groups living under their sort of in their space, but not necessarily directly associated with them or part of them. And that whole group is almost, it seems like, been forgotten. But
yeah,
the thing with that group is it's a very quiet group. They don't necessarily have a united banner, and they don't necessarily have a well represented voice.
It's very tragic. It does feel to me like the end for Providence as it was. Like, it's been a long run, but I do feel like it's coming to an end. I don't know if there's a way to reverse that, unfortunately. So NRDS as a concept, like, is it really over? That is a whole concept over, or is it just in this area? And I would like to see it explored in some other way, some modern way. I don't know if it will be, though. But be sure that Wrecking Crew isn't going to be NRDS. NRDS.
Yeah, NRDS gets a lot of negative press, but I thought it was a perfectly good system. It worked fine. Like, it has its flaws, but there's nothing wrong with it.
NRDS, for those that don't know, is not red, don't shoot. And the opposite is Nbsi, not blue, shoot it. And these things basically are, I don't know what you would call them. They're kind of like mottos.
Rules of engagement.
The rules of engagement. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. So what it means is, if you're NRDS, it means that you're not going to shoot first, ask questions later. You're going to wait to see if somebody's red. If they're red, they're your enemy, or they're on a kill on sight list, and so then you attack them. But if somebody goes into your territory that is just gray and neutral, you don't do anything to them. So you let people kind of pass. So the opposite is true for most of EVE. By far, most of EVE is Nbsi, which is, if you're not my ally, I'm just going to kill you. If you're gray, I'm just going to kill you. If you're red, I'm just going to kill you. So unless you're blue or purple in my fleet, I'm going to kill you.
Or green.
Green.
Everyone forgets about green.
Well, what's green in my alliance?
Corp.
Corp? Oh.
Direct Corp is green. Alliance is blue. Well, there's like three blues. I don't know. There's many colors. There's a whole rainbow.
Right. And when you hear purple fleet, that means you're in my fleet and I kill everybody not in my fleet on site. And that's usually community groups that come from all over to do a fleet together. It's just like, we're going to be a purple fleet, which means anybody can join. But if you're in the fleet, you kill everything, even your own allies, when you're out there.
That can be a bit of a touchy one with certain diplos.
Sure. Okay, well, we've come to, I'm out of time. I have been for a little while, but I do like talking about EVE, so I will see you guys in Talking Stations Discord today. I just want to go over some of this stuff real quick, news bits. CCP did a stream fleet where they paired up a dev with a certain pilot, and that happened over the weekend. That was pretty funny. Eve Echo's announcement there is no corporation structures in HiSec. Interesting. That's due to a PvP thing. Also, we talked about a big chunk, the Conoco Alliance, the Conoco Corporation that was a big part of Outer Hell has moved over to Army of Mangoes, which gave them 4,000 more characters, which is a big deal. All right. That's all we have time for today. We will see you tomorrow. Thanks, Spod. Thanks, Tiberius. Good to see you again. And we will raid somebody now, so hang around. We'll go to Torvald. He was involved yesterday in some of those 2-on-2 fights, so ask him questions about that. Take care, everyone.